العلم أشراف مطلوب وطالبه لله أكرام من يمشي على قدمه. العلم نور مبين يستضيء به أهل السعادات والجهال في الظلم.
So last week we stopped off on the qaida to do with al-aslu fil adat and so on, al-aslu fil ashya. We already talked about a few things where the Sheikh was saying that well aslu fi ma'in al-tahara, where the Sheikh was saying rahmatullahi alayhi والأصل في الأبضاع واللحوم والنفس والأموال and so on والأصل في مياه الطهارة والثياب والحجارة. So the Sheikh mentioned the default ruling for these things, the adat, or afwan, not the adat, the miyah, water, earth, clothing, hijara, abda', abda' mean intercourse, the private parts, luhum, meat, and so on. These are the asl, the original default ruling is that it is permissible. Then the Shaykh rahmatullah alayhi mentioned also وَالنَّفْسُ وَالْأَمْوَالِ الْمَعْصُومِ. So the nafs and the amwal, we already talked about the property and the life of people is sacred until there's a dalil that takes the ruling away from it. حتى يجيء الحل, unless permissibility comes from فهم هذاك. طيب. والأصل في عاداتنا الإباحة حتى يجيء صارف الإباحة. So that's where we'll start off from today, inshallah. Line number 22. The default ruling with regards to our customs is permissibility until an evidence comes changing this permissibility. Right. The general meaning of this principle, the general meaning of this principle is that the origin or the default ruling for things that people are accustomed with, things that people have taken as the norm, okay? These adat, these customs. So when we're talking about customs or adat, the definition of it is ما لا يتقرب به أو ما لا يتقرب به الإنسان ويتعبد به. That which a person doesn't get closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala initially by doing so, nor do they worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala via this specific thing. So for example, eating. It is not a way of getting closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You can't say I'm eating this as an ibadah, I'm taking it as an ibadah. No, that is a adah. Likewise, the sleep. Likewise, how a person gets married. Not in terms of the nikah and the aqd and that, like in the technicalities and the logistics of how a person gets married, when the wedding is going to be, is it after the walima, when does the walima take place, and so on. So these are adat. These are adat. Also, the living, how people live, who people live with. These are adat, clothing that they wear, places that they live, locations that they live. These are adat. These things that people do are adat. They're the customs. So for example, in some countries, people wear مثلا shimar or imama and a thobe. In some countries, people wear an izar or some sort of what they would call a sarong or some sort of izar or clothing that covers the bottom part, a layer that covers the bottom part of the body from the waist downwards, and a different garment to cover the top. Or sometimes they would wear shirts. Sometimes the thobes that they wear are a different type to the thobe that another person in another location might wear. Sometimes the hijab, the way it is made, although it covers the whole body and it meets the conditions, like in the way it is made in one country is different to the way it is made in another country, whilst both fulfill the condition of the hijab. So these sorts of things are adat. So the Shaykh says the asl of these are, or the asl of this is that it is permissible. It is permissible. So everything that a person wishes to do, unless it's connected to the religion, then it's permissible to do. Mathalan, how you design your house, where you live, the clothes you wear. As long as they are in accordance with the Sharia, then you're allowed to do whatever you wish, however you wish. Up until where? حتى يجيء صارف الإباحة. Until certain evidence comes prohibiting this adat or this custom. And that evidence or that sarif, that evidence can be, write this down, it can be a nas shari, it can be a nas, a legislative text. For example, it can be a Quran verse, and it can be sunnah, or it can be ijma', or it can be qiyas, which is sahih, analogy. So that is the evidence that can take a custom away from its ruling to become impermissible. So مثلا, in some countries, nikah, مثلا, nikah, they would do the nikah and the wedding on the same day. And the nikah would be in the morning, and the walima would be dhuhr time, مثلا, after dhuhr. And then in the evening, women have a party. So that is a way of doing nikah, according to some Muslim communities. There's another way whereby people get together in a big hall, obviously separated, segregation between the two genders, and then nikah takes place there and then. The eating of the food, the walima, takes place there and then, and the party takes place there and then. But in other customs, what people do is they do the nikah, and a few months down the line, they do, or sometime down the line, they do the party. They take the party takes place, and also the walima. Some countries and some customs in the Muslim world, what they do is they have the nikah, then they have a walima on the same day, and then they have the party in the evening, and then the next 2-3 days are also a form of celebration. So they get together. So these adat are all permissible as long as they do not contradict the Sharia. So مثلا الآن, from the adat that are impermissible is that people have mixed weddings where the two genders are mixing, وَالْعِيَاذُ بِاللَّهِ, and the music is being played and so on. So they have the walima in the daytime. Sahih, that's correct. They have the nikah. Sahih, up to this point is correct. Lakin in the evening, they have a party, a wedding party, which is mixed. Now that's haram. So you can't say, al-aslu fil adat al-ibaha, Shaykh. It's permissible because the asl is these are just adat. We're not getting closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala by us doing this wedding. It's only a adat. No, you can't say that. Why? Because now it's transgressed and it's gone into the boundaries of the Sharia. It's gone into the muharramat, these things that Allah Jalla wa Ala has made haram. So there is something which is haram, which is the free mixing of the two genders, which is muharram in the Sharia of Islam. So that is the general meaning of adat. We'll go back to the adat, inshallah, in a qaida which is coming, al-urfu muhakkama or al-aada muhakkama or muhakkima. We shall see that, inshallah, in the coming lessons. And it is one of the 5 major principles. طيب. So we take from there, we can derive from there that it's important for students of knowledge and those people that are practicing the religion of Islam to understand that in our families, we have a lot of people that are not practicing. There are a lot of people who do not care about the rules and regulations of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So they have norms and customs that they practice. Right. So just because they have these norms and customs, we shouldn't think that they're always wrong or impermissible. No. We shouldn't think, oh no, because they're not practicing, then that thing that they're doing is haram. No. Do not try changing their adah, the family that you have, your family and so on, unless what they're doing is muharram in the sharia, in the kitab and the sunnah, or the ijma' or qiyas, then leave them, let it be. And also take part in this adah. That is a way of gaining their trust and gaining their confidence. So when you take part in their social gatherings and their functions and so on, and you're part of them, they will become confident in you. So when you advise them in the future, they'll take your advice because you don't deem yourself higher than them or above them in station and status, even though you might be a practicing person, mashallah, praying 5 times a day and so on, and they the opposite. Lakin, do not try taking yourself and segregating yourself from them. So even if they have a family gathering and there's no munkar and evil taking place in these gatherings, take part. That is using hikmah when you're trying to call to the way of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Because you, as a talib al-ilm, your every movement is a way of calling to Allah Jalla wa ala. Your every movement is a ibadah that you're getting closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala with. So you're a da'i ila Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You're a caller to Allah Jalla wa ala. Right. So these adat, if they don't contradict the Sharia of Islam, take part in them and be happy with them and enjoy your time with them. They will see you as someone who is one of them, and later on, when it comes to asking you questions or when it comes to taking your advice, they'll be willing. طيب. So this قاعدة على كل حال has many evidences. From them, the statement of Allah Jalla wa ala, هو الذي خلق لكم ما في الأرض جميعا. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the one that created everything on the earth for you. طيب. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says He's created the earth for you. Where's the mahal shahid? The mahal shahid is this is in what they would call masaq al-imtinan. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is telling us about the blessings He has given us. So from the blessings that Allah has given us is that He has created everything in the world. Lakum, for us. The understanding that we derive from that, or the meaning is that أي لكم أن تنتفعوا بكل ما على الأرض. That yes, it is permissible for you, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created it for you, then it is permissible for you to take advantage of everything that is on the earth. طيب. Also, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam says, أنتم أعلم بأمر دنياكم. When the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam came to Medina, he saw them and they were fertilizing their farmland in a certain area, because they were people of agriculture, Ahl Medina. And then he said to them, why don't you do this instead of that? He told them to take a certain method, to do a certain method for the dates. And then when it was time for harvest, they realized that the advice of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, or the way that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam advised them wasn't good for their crop, wasn't good for their dates that they were trying to harvest. Right. And then they came to the Prophet ﷺ and said, Ya Rasulullah, we told you, came to you and so on. We had asked for your advice, and then this is what you said. Then the Messenger ﷺ said, Antum a'lam bi dunyakum. You are more knowledgeable in the affairs of your world, of your worldly affairs. Right. Now, also, we find that many of the scholars, when talking about the adat, they would also al-aslu fil adat al-ibaha. Al-aslu fil adat al-ibaha. مثلا Shaykh al-Islam rahmatullahi alayhi rahmatullah wasi'ah, he says, وَأَمَّا الْعَادَاتُ, as for the adat, the customs, فَالْأَصْلُ فِيهَا عَدَمُ الْحَظْرِ. The asl for it is permissibility, that it is not impermissible. The asl for it is permissibility. فَلَا يَحْظَرُ مِنْهَا إِلَّا مَا حَظَّرَهُ اللَّهُ سُبْحَانَهُ وَتَعَالَى. So we don't make impermissible, we only make impermissible from it that which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made impermissible. And Shaykh al-Islam ibn Qayyim rahmatullahi alayhi rahmatullah wasi'ah also says, along those lines, وَمَعْلُومٌ أَنَّهُ لَا حَرَامَ إِلَّا مَا حَرَمَهُ اللَّهُ وَرَسُولُهُ. And it is known that there is no haram except what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and His Messenger made haram. Right. So the asl what is permissibility. وَلَا تَأْثِيمَ إِلَّا مَا أَثِمَ اللَّهُ وَرَسُولُهُ بِهِ فَاعِلُ. And there is no sinning, or a person does something, there's no way, we can't say that they are sinning, because the only one that is sinning is the one that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and His Messenger have clarified that the doer of this action has fallen into sin. كَمَا أَنَّهُ لَا وَاجِبَ إِلَّا مَا أَوْجَبَهُ اللَّهُ سُبْحَانَهُ وَتَعَالَى. Likewise, there is no, just like there is no wajib There's nothing which is compulsory upon the ibad, upon the servants, إِلَّا مَا أَوْجَبَهُ اللَّهُ, except that which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made wajib. وَلَا حَرَامَ إِلَّا مَا حَرَمَهُ اللَّهُ subhanahu wa ta'ala. وَلَا دِينَ, and there's no religion, إِلَّا مَا شَرَعَهُ اللَّهُ subhanahu wa ta'ala. And there's no religion except that which Allah has legislated. And we shall see this principle coming, inshallah. فالأصل في العبادات البطلان. So the essence for ibadat, the general ruling, the default ruling is that it is false, it is invalid. حتى يقوم دليل على الأمر, unless a dalil, an evidence comes proving that this is a ibadah to get closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala with. والأصل في العقود والمعاملات, and the asl في العقود والمعاملات الصحة. The asl, the default ruling for mu'amalat, the dealings and transactions and contracts and so on, is as-sihha, is that they are valid. حتى يقوم, unless and up until a dalil, حتى يقوم الدليل على البطلان والتحريم, until evidence comes for butlan and tahrim. Unless evidence comes proving that it is muharram. So مثلا, if a people from a certain land, مثلا, in the way of doing nikah, they have a man is allowed to marry مثلا 10, or a man is allowed to marry 10 women or 5 women. Right? We can't say this is a ada. Like, can we say that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has only made permissible 4 wives? Or if a man wants to marry 2 sisters, he doesn't want to choose between them, like he wants to marry both of them. He can't say al-asl fil adat al-ibaha. The asl is that it is mubah. No, he can't say that. Why? Because now there's a contradiction of the Sharia, which is the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam prohibited us from combining in marriage 2 sisters, or an aunt, a woman and her auntie, maternal or paternal. Right. So that is also some of the statements from Ahlul Ilm regarding this qa'idah. So the qa'idah is al-aslu fil adat al-ibaha. The asl for all forms of customs and norms that people practice is permissibility unless there is an evidence. Right. The next qa'idah, وَلَيْسَ مَشْرُوعًا مِنَ الْأُمُورِ غَيْرُ الَّذِي فِي شَرْعِنَا مَذْكُورِ. غير الذي في شرعنا مذكور. Right. Now this is a qa'idah which is the complete opposite to what has preceded. What has preceded? What are the principles that have preceded? And it's a question. What are the principles that have preceded? In the last lesson, in today's lesson.
الأمور بمقاصدها.
الأمور بمقاصدها, that was like 2 months ago. We studied. I'm talking about in the last couple of lessons. Last lesson and this lesson.
لا ضرر ولا ضرار.
لا, we started that about a month and a half ago, a month ago. It's good to know you've been revising the bit, Lakin. Come closer a bit.
اليقين لا يزول بالشك.
Like, come a bit closer. Last week, what did we talk about? Last week was the exam. The week before that, or even this, what I mentioned earlier on. Hold on. What was it?
This principle that العادات محكمات. I don't think we studied that yet.
No. والأصل في مياهنا الطهارة والأرض والثياب والحجارة. The default ruling for water, earth, garments, stones. What? What was the default ruling?
It's pure.
Pure. Permissibility, صح?
Yeah.
طيب. نعم الأصل براءة الذمة. نعم. والأصل في الأبداع والنفس واللحوم. So we were talking about these things, the adat, being what? Permissible, the customs that we have. Okay? The way we eat, the way we sleep, and so on, right? Permissibility. This qa'idah is the complete opposite, which is وَلَيْسَ مَشْرُوعًا مِنَ الْأُمُورِ غَيْرُ الَّذِي فِي شَرْعِنَا مَذْكُورٍ. No matter is legislated, nothing is legislated in our Sharia other than what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has legislated in the Quran and Sunnah, in our Sharia. So, مثلا, when we were talking about that, we were saying everything's permissible except that which contradicts the Sharia, صح?
Yeah.
Now we say the complete opposite. Every type of ibadah is impermissible, whereas before we were saying permissible. Every type of ibadah connected to the religion of Allah is impermissible unless we have a dalil proving it. proving that it is what? Permissible. And this is the qaida where they say al-aslu fil ibadat al-hadar wal-man'. Al-aslu fil adat al-man' wal-hadar. 1 second. Let me write it down.
I thought you were talking about the major principles, not the sub principles. Afwan.
No, I was talking about this one, the one we were moved on to just now. نصل في العبادات الحظر والمنع. Can everyone see the screen? الأصل في العبادات الحظر والمنع. طيب. So the asl